Be definite in everything you do and never leave unfinished thoughts in the mind. Form the habit of reaching definite decisions on all subjects. What is up, champions? Welcome to another episode of Champion Reads, where we talk about the best-selling books and their best principles to help you with your best lives. I'm your host, William Blake. We again have the wonderful founder of Champion Circle, Mr. John Kovacs Jr., on with us today, and I'm very excited because we are going over book number 1 of the list of Outwitting the Devil. Not the list of Outwitting the Devil. I jumped from topic to topic, but you held up the book, so I had to do it. We are talking about Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill today. Very excited about it. For those who don't know, what we did was from you, our listeners, the ratings of which book was the best. We took the top 4 and we went over them. We went over The Speed of Trust, went over The Richest Man in Babylon, Leadership and Self-Deception, and we are at number 1. The best of the best, the one that each of you champions love the most, Outwitting the Devil. Now, this holds a special spot in John's and I's heart because one of our favorite quotes is from this book, which is, be definite in everything you do and never leave unfinished thoughts in the mind. Ooh, so powerful. So powerful. Can't wait to jump into the topic today. John, I don't know if you knew. I'll say it quick. The first time you introduced me to this book was back when we met up in Heber City in Utah, and we went to a taco place, of all places. Tony's, yeah. And there you told me, hey, you got to read Outwitting the Devil. And just absorbing as much information as I could from the expert and the master, John. I read it, and oh my goodness, how great it was. Such a mind changer.
Follow up to that story. You read it. I had read it first, but I introduced it to you. You're the one who came back to me and introduced this quote to me. Somehow I breezed over it when I read it for the first time, and you made this quote so impactful for me because I was like, you're right. Like, this is something that I totally missed. And maybe that's because when I was reading it, I was drifting with the devil. That's a hint from the book. So I don't know, but man, this book has changed our lives. And I couldn't have had it any other way other than to share it with one of my closest friends, you know?
Dude, thank you for sharing it with me. Such a great book. And just, it had so many gold nuggets in there.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. Which we're going to talk about the applications today, about what we've been able to apply into our lives. So let's talk about the first one that's popped up, which is mastering our fear. So like it goes into that we learn to identify our fear, and then as we identify it, we realize that it truly is the barrier to success. It's the ultimate barrier that stops us from where we're wanting to go, and stops us from being courageous, stops us from facing things head on, and really it controls us. And I think the statistics is like 98% of people fall into this category, which we'll talk about drifting in a second. But 98% of people are in this, and only 2% have gone out and mastered the fear of pushing forward. Man, John, I just want to hear from you. What comes to your mind?
Well, one thing to clarify for our newest listeners is that in the book Outwitting the Devil, Napoleon Hill doesn't actually have an interaction with the devil. I mean, there are so many interpretations of this book, and whether it's up to you to decide what you take it as. And that's the important part, is this isn't like he sinned and now he's, confronting the devil. Like, this is an experience that was either accomplished through a vision, a dream in his meditations. Some of the principles he teaches in his first book, Think and Grow Rich, But this definitely can be a literal experience or a theoretical experience, depending on how you want to take it. But one of the, I guess, most important pieces is that fear can both enable us to not achieve, or fear can cripple us from achieving what we would like to achieve the most. And when it comes to success, right, and developing courage, we have to learn to take on the unknowns, because not everything is known, not everything is easy, and a lot of people believe the answer to unknown is education, and I agree with that. But just because you don't know what you don't know doesn't mean by knowing it you'll be able to do it or achieve it. And instead, it's the people who decide, you know what, I'm going to use a different principle here. I'm going to use a little bit of faith, a little bit of hope, but I'm going to follow my desire. Those are the people who can break through fear, and they can create courage in their life, and they can take on tasks, obstacles, challenges, or even the unknown head on. And rather than letting it control us, it becomes something where you have full control of your actions and yourselves. So that quote, be definite in everything you do, never leave unfinished thoughts in the mind. A lot of the times we don't finish things because we are fearful in the moment, whether that's fear of the solution, fear of the action, or we give it the title or identity of laziness, or the identity of not just not getting to it, or it's on my to-do list. But truly what you're doing is you're avoiding it. You're procrastinating the achievement of your ultimate dreams and goals. And there's a reason why. There is a underlying fear, because you lack the courage to bust down the walls and to do the biggest tasks first, to do the most important things. And it's okay that you have a fear about it, but you've got to utilize your courage to break down that fear. The last thing I'll share is I've heard this acronym before, and it's actually grown on me. I didn't like it at first, but it's really grown on me. And it's the acronym of FEAR, standing for false evidence appearing real. And whether you want to believe it or not, again, fear is something that you have perceived as a problem or a challenge. But let me tell you, if it is false evidence appearing real, you've created it in your mind. And honestly, when you attack your goals, like you're attacking a fear, you have a new sense of power and vengeance. It's allowing you to really succeed quickly, and it's a powerful tool. So again, I just want to iterate the fact that it's important to identify fear as the ultimate barrier to success, and you really got to develop or engage in your courageous efforts to attack those most um, um, the word I'm going to use is oh man, I had it. It was such a good word too. I'm working on my thesaurus today, but it really is something that can hold you back unless you take it head on. So, man, if you let fear cripple you, it will keep you in your shoes, and you will continue to drift as driftwood does downstream, unless you have propellers to get you to shore.
Right on the freaking money. And champions who are listening, like, how do you overcome it? Courage. Face it head on, just like John said. Courage isn't the absence of fear. And I think that's a very clear distinction. Like, if you want to master your fear, it's having fear. It's still being scared of something, but you face it on. You go right into it rather than trying to avoid it, go around, up, down, whatever it is. It's heading it face on. And when you head it face on, then you're able to go through the pain, feel the emotion of it, and then at the end be able to find the light, find the result, find what you're looking for, and realize that it wasn't that scary at all. It was simply because you thought yourself into being scared. But if you want to overcome it, courage is not the absence. It's being scared, but still being able to push forward with it. With that, let's jump into the next one, because drifting is a massive thing that they talk about, that Napoleon talks about in this book. Like, it's one of the first things that pops up, and then continually addresses it throughout it. As a drifter, I'm trying to remember where the principle comes from, but in shortness of definition, It is that you are letting the flow of life control the way that you're going, rather than intentionally setting up yourself and taking the action you need to get your own desired results. And like I shared, about 98% of people struggle with this. And maybe it's not even struggle. 98% of people do this, because I think the 2% still struggle with it, but they overcome it. They push past it. They do it by setting clear goals for themselves. They do it by staying intentional with what they're doing. And doing that helps them to stop wasting time on distractions and instead flip it over to things that have more meaning, things that are fulfilling more with the purpose that they're working for. Like, I know for myself, back when it was at the beginning of this year, I had a massive decision between going and doing a 9-to-5 job, going back to Walmart, to where there are a lot of drifters there. They're just letting life happen to them. They don't have any goals, no ambitions. Going back there, or starting my own business and start speaking more and start doing a podcast and start helping out with a bunch of different things. And I knew that long term, I wanted to be doing what I'm doing right now. And so I made the conscious decision of going forward into my fear of, I don't know where the money's going to come from. But I'm so glad that I did, because so much has happened this last year. And that was simply from not wasting time on distractions, because I was purposeful with my movements and knew exactly the path that I wanted to walk.
Oh, that was, man, so good. Okay. When it comes to drifting, I've got bad news and I've got good news. Here's the bad news first. You are all drifting. We are all drifting. There are areas in our lives where we are continuously or constantly or repeatedly drifting. That's the bad news. But here's the good news. Drifting is not an identity. It's just a status. Drifting is not an identity. It's just a status. But if you let it become a permanent status, it can then become an identity. Don't become the 98% of this world that are in consistent, repetitive drifting. Rather, be the 2% or less, the 1% really, because those are the people who live intentionally. And the good news is supposed to pump you up. It's supposed to power you, because look, we all drift. I drifted this morning. Like, it happened. Let's just admit the obvious, right? And when it comes down to it, being definite in everything you do is a status, not an identity. So get out of that rut. Stop accepting it as who you are. You are not lazy. You're just being lazy. It's not an identity. Don't own it. Just allow it to be a temporary status. Okay. You have a feeling, an experience. And when you start to set clear goals and be absolutely vivid in your vision, okay, and you start being intentional, you will stop wasting time and getting distracted on your true desires, and you'll make meaningful progress in your life. That is what it's all about. That is what I thought ultimately was the greatest takeaway and lesson from this book, and which is why it's so relevant, because you and I today have drifted maybe once or twice, maybe more. Maybe you're currently in that state, but it's okay. Get out of it. Snap out of it, right? I literally just slapped my face if you're watching the video on this podcast. Like, snap out of it, John. Get out of it. You can do this. Breaking the mold, getting out of the rut. It takes a requirement. And here's some of my applications, right? I taught this. I actually learned this from a few coaches when I started my entrepreneurial journey, and it still works today. Like, every day, I am an emotional human being, and I wear my emotions on my sleeve, guys. It's just who I am. I love it. Okay, but I also, when it comes to setbacks or things that I disagree on or things that I just don't feel good about, I can tend to shrivel up. And that's not cool, because I'm a leader. I'm someone who needs to be on top of my game. as a business owner. And so when it comes to being a person who has emotions, I have these things called state changers. And state changers are how you change the biological makeup of your moment and your status, aka change the way you feel in that moment. And it's hard because it could feel ingenuous or fake or forcibly it could feel just wrong. But these state changers, when you try them and get used to them, they can change everything. And what you got to do is you got to change your blood, you got to change your adrenaline, you got to change everything in it. And I do things like barking like a dog, or going outside and screaming hallelujah, or fun little affirmations. Okay, as simple as going to the mirror and looking yourself in the eyes and talking to yourself, right? Things that can change your state, that can pattern interrupt what you're currently experiencing. These are applications you can use anytime, anywhere, any day. I was at lunch with an old friend, and I found myself sinking back into my old drifting habits with this friend. So I literally just got up and said, I'll be back. And I went to the bathroom and I looked myself in the eye in the mirror and I said, you're John Kovac Jr. And I gave myself a pep talk, and I walked back out there with my head held high and my shoulders puffed up. And I said, hey, I'm sorry I acted that way. I guess I was just being someone I wasn't. And I am now who I am. And I had a great conversation and a great experience with this human being. So again, state changers, whether you literally fuel yourself with adrenaline, like barking like a dog. And by the way, when you bark like a dog in public, boy, does it bring a whole new rush of feeling that you've never experienced before. And people look at you differently. But you know what? Who cares? Because you're no longer drifting. Snap out of it. Like, get out of it, and you will find so much more success. That's me. I know. I know it's unconventional. I know it's weird, but try.
So for those who are wondering what to do in order to outwit the devil, bark like a dog. That's it. That is
Yeah.
the sum of the message. I I love it. Absolutely love it, because truly it really just comes back to being intentional. Like, are you letting things happen to you? Is this the world telling you how things are going? Or are you actually putting a hand in it? Are you hands-on experience? Or are you just floating? Are you in the in the those water parks how they have like the circle pool, or like what's it called? Like the floating,
Lazy River.
yeah, the lazy river. Don't be in the lazy river all the time. You don't get excitement. How do you get excitement? You walk your butt up to the biggest of the slides and you go down them, and you have so much fun, and you do it with friends, you do it with family. Like, that's where you want. You don't just want to sit in the lazy river all day. You don't want to sit in the lazy river of life. You want to go out and enjoy those water parks. And I think that brings us to the very last point with like a key principle Napoleon talks about. It's definite of purpose. And it's really just defining it. Define your why. Because when you do, I know for me, when I've defined my why, and my why, Evan Carmichael, if you guys know who he is, he came up with a book, Your One Word Why. And so it's your why squished down into a single word. And for me, it's light. And from that, I know that everything that I do and all the words that I say surround of what light means to me, and surrounds me by what the how I want to impact people in the light way. It's incredible that when you know what you want and have that why, that your interactions with other people change, absolutely change. For an example, I think it was from a commercial from Jordan Peterson, when they were doing, it's like the Amazon thing. They're all sitting around the table talking about the Bible. And one of the people that was on there said, talk to people like they are Jesus in disguise,
Mm.
and tell me how different you talk to them. And for someone who is a faith-based individual, who is a Christian, if you talk to other people like they are Jesus in disguise, your interactions are going to be different. they are going to change, and they're going to be so much more elevated. You're going to be so much more engaged. And that's because you have a definite purpose in what you're doing. So that's to wrap up my thoughts, is figure out your why. And as you do, you get definite, you get specific. And when you do, goodness gracious, all those interactions, all your relationships are going to elevate.
I'm so glad you brought Jesus into this, because seriously, there's a concept, and I've been totally oblivious to this until this year, actually. And there's a great and famous quote that says, we are not human beings having spiritual experiences. Rather, we are spirits having human or mortal experiences, right? And that intention is everything. Like, it didn't really click for me when Tony Robbins says energy is everything, until this year. Like, it had a new depth and a new meaning when I realized that energy is intention. And rather than letting life happen to you and it's just part of the cycle that you're on, you're in that lazy river of flow. Instead, when you make everything an intention, you are in control. It's different. And like you said, like, if you treat everyone as if you were talking to Jesus in disguise, like, that intention makes things so impactful. And I love it. Like, we truly are spiritual beings having a mortal experience. Rather than letting life happen to us, you create life. You are truly, and if you believe this, great. And if you don't, it's okay. But just side with me for one moment. If you were designed, like, biologically, chemically, molecularly, not a word, created, compacted, and designed to be a creator, to make things happen, to have the ability to invent, the ability to decide, the ability to change things, that is the compounding molecular structure and foundations for who we are. And as creators, if you don't use that magic wand of power, you're wasting your life, you're wasting your abilities. And I get a little emotional talking about this, because the more time you spend drifting, that's the more time you spend, or you take away from your ability to use your God-given talents and powers. And most people think of superheroes as these fictional characters, but truly, at the core of it all, you are a superhero. You have that creative ability, and that is not to be so wishy-washy and full of just energetic mumbo jumbo. This is intention. So I love what you said, Willie. And you've got to have purpose. You've got to have clear whys. You've got to have a word or foundation or a desire. Um, when it comes to pulling up to the drive-through, have you ever left the drive-through without ordering because you didn't know what you want? It's very rare, actually. 99% of people get what they want, or they at least order something from the drive-through, and it's because they kind of have an idea or an intention of what they want. Sometimes you have to look at the menu to see what you want first, and that's okay. But 9 out of 10 times, everyone orders. So if you can order food from a drive-through, why can't you order results in your life, or dreams, or outcomes? It's the same principle, tapping into it. You need to have a definiteness of purpose, clear up your intentions, get crystal clear about what you want. And boy, you'll find the challenges in your life seem to drift away. Get it? We've transferred the drifting from a status of your own being to the objects in your life, to the obstacles and challenges in your life. Transfer that power of drifting to something else, because gosh darn it, you're worth it. And you are a creator and a being that's worth every ounce of energy poured into the creation of you. That's what it's all about, really, for me.
Man, I love that. What a great way to end it. What a what a great thing that we were able to do this last month of the year. Go over the four top books of that you champions have been able to share to I was going to say implode. That's not the right thing. Absorb, that you
Yeah.
champions have been able to absorb in your lives. And we take these books seriously. We don't want to bring a book on here that, one, we don't back up, but two, that isn't going to help you as well as our lives. So thank you for joining us for this final episode of the number one Outwitting the Devil book that is on the top of the list. And with that, we end the episode with you guys. If you found inspiration in this episode, go ahead and subscribe to Champion Reads. You can find us on Overcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other major podcasting platforms. As well as you can find us on mychampionscircle.com, our webpage where we have the links to this podcast, links to our socials, as well as everything else going in the Champion Circle universe. Until next time, champions, continue to be awesome. Continue to show up in your life and mastering your fear. And always remember that you have the choice in being a drifter. And it doesn't mean that you are a drifter. You're just doing drifting things. So make the conscious effort to switch, to turn on that switch and flip it to be able to control your life, because you have that power and you can do it. We'll see you on the next episode of Champion Reads.